Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're at 12:01. Thank you guys for spending your lunch time with me, but let's go ahead and jump right into this. So if you have not met me before, my name's Chase Kilby. I work at Facilisgroup as the Revenue Enablement Manager. I've been here for about a little over 2 years now. Um, and a presentation I gave in New Orleans, if you guys were in New Orleans, was about AI and specifically AI in action, which is what we're going to talk about today. Um, and the goal of today is to talk about actionable insights utilizing AI. So there's a lot of buzzwords and theories and crazy stuff that people like to talk about when it comes to AI. It's a very busy space right now. But the goal of this presentation is to focus mostly on actionable things you guys can walk away from today and start using this afternoon. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. The participant number is still climbing, so I'm half stalling, half not stalling, because I want to make sure that everybody gets in here for when I jump into stuff. But I guess we're going to go ahead and get started. So first things first, something I did in the New Orleans presentation, which of course was in person, so it's a little different for the webinar version. But something I did was I had everybody stand up and I did this fun engagement activity of how often people are using AI tools. I'm not going to have you guys stand up because I can't see any of you, so we're not going to do that. But I want you to take a mental note as I begin diving deeper into this. Just think through how often you're using AI tools in your day-to-day. Is it something that you're doing monthly, multiple times a month, weekly, daily, hourly? Are you using one right now as I'm talking? It's just a good kind of note to understand where you're at and then how you'll absorb the information I'm going to talk about. Because I think the other part of this presentation that I think is good is, if you're somebody that is still new and trying to understand how to use AI to, best improve your workflows and your processes, I think you'll get a lot out of this. But if you're someone that's using AI every day and you're using a bunch of different tools and you're staying on top of all the new stuff, awesome. Hats off to you. And I think you'll still be able to get something out of this presentation, hopefully, that you find helpful. And I do want to mention as well, as I keep going, if you do have questions, you should be able to drop them in the Q&A section. I may stop and answer questions throughout the hour that we have today. If I don't, though, I will definitely make sure at the end to go through the Q&A section and answer any questions I get. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So I already kind of mentioned this, but again, the goal of today is to present on actionable insights, things you guys can walk away from this webinar with and start using today, whether it's in your personal life, your professional life, within your organization. I don't want to talk about how AI is going to take jobs and AI is going to take over the world and all these crazy things that are those are the headlines that are read, but I want to talk about what you guys can actually be doing. So that's what we're going to talk about. And how we're going to do that is we're going to break it down into 3 categories. So how can you utilize AI to streamline processes? How can you utilize AI to simplify? And then how can you utilize AI to save time? So those are kind of 3 major categories that I have found for AI to be super helpful in. And it's a good way to kind of break it down and look at some specific use cases for how you guys can start using these tools. So what I'll do is I'll share 3 specific use cases that I've found super helpful, or things that I think could be relevant to people in our industry. And we'll break them down and we'll walk through kind of how I go through them. So that's what we're going to talk about. We'll have 3 categories, 3 use cases in each, so 9 total use cases that you guys will see today. Now, before we get to that, there's a few other pieces I want to cover. And this slide right here, it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 9 words. It's the most important slide in this entire presentation. So I want you guys to really pay attention to this slide. Does your organization have a POV on AI usage? So has your organization established what you can and cannot do when it comes to AI as an organization? This is super important because, and whether you're an owner or maybe you're a key manager within your organization watching this, or you're a sales rep or sales leader or CSR, marketing, whatever your role is, this is your homework. When you leave this webinar, this is what I want you guys to really take away from this is it's very important to establish a perspective or a point of view for your organization so that everyone has a great understanding of what they can and cannot do. And it's important for multiple reasons. One, it's important so that obviously we know what we cannot do. can we upload this super sensitive document to ChatGPT and utilize it for data analysis? Yes or no? Probably no, but it needs to be established up front. And at this point in the AI game, if your organization hasn't established that, I think that's the single most important thing you can do walking away from this presentation is making sure that you have that POV established. On the flip side, it's also super important to do this so that you know what you can do. So understanding, we don't want people to feel limited in terms of what they can and cannot do with these tools because they don't know what they can and can't do. So whether it's what sorts of data you can upload, whether it's what tools you can use, there's a variety of things you can include in this statement for your organization. For example, Facilisgroup, we're a Microsoft Office organization, so we utilize Microsoft Teams, Outlook, all those tools. So we use Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI tool, which we'll get into here in a second. But so we utilize Copilot for our AI usage. So again, if you take nothing away from today, I want you guys to make sure you take away that this is super important. It is critical to establish that perspective for your organization so that everybody is aligned and everybody understands what they can and cannot do with these tools. So jumping forward here, now let's talk through the landscape a little bit. So, and see, this is what I'm going to do. I got the first Q&A here. How does OpenAI relate to the commercially available AI tools? Okay, this is a great question. I think this is one I'm going to pause. I'm going to wait though until the end because that's a good question. So hang tight, but I will answer that. I'll kind of jump through these as I'm going and see if it makes sense to answer it now or in a second. So this is actually super relevant to this slide. So the landscape is super vast. I'm sure everybody on this call right now is very aware. There's an endless amount of new tools coming up every week of different AI powered tools. And so the first thing I want to cover is kind of the basics, and that's your, there we go, your LLMs, your large language models. So this is what I'm sure we're all familiar with when we think of AI. In particular, I'm sure we're all aware of ChatGPT. This came out back in 2022 when this tool was released. This is kind of when my AI journey started. I'm sure maybe for many of you guys as well, this is when your guys' journey began. But there's way more to AI than just ChatGPT. Is it a great tool? Yes. Do I use it a lot? Yes. But there's way more to it than that, and that's what we're going to break down here. So large language models, or LLMs, you can think of them as your sort of chatbot tools, ChatGPT probably being the most popular, but there's many more out there. So for example, you've got Microsoft Copilot. So again, this is what we use at Facilisgroup. It integrates with Microsoft tools. So for example, within Teams or Outlook, you'll have Copilot integrated to those tools. But again, it's very similar to ChatGPT in that it's a chatbot function. And then you've also got, let's see here. Why is this? My slide's not progressing. What's happening? You've got, come on. I may have to, whoa. I apologize. That was very strange. We're back. Okay, apologies. Google Gemini. Google Gemini is another LLM out there that's very popular. Of course, it's just Google's offering of this tool. Then you've got Perplexity. Perplexity, again, functions the very similar way. However, it's a little more optimized for research. You'll get better citations out of this tool. Claude is another great one. Claude, I've found, is specifically very good for copywriting. And so you'll get really good prompts in terms of voice and how your language sounds when you're writing. And then you've got the Elon Musk's offering of Grok, and then DeepSeek is another option. And I would say these are probably the big seven. You can consider these to be the big seven LLMs out there. And again, I would encourage everybody on this call, if you're like, I'm never going to use 7 different tools that all do the same thing, I would recommend playing around with them. Again, I'm sure ChatGPT is the most popular, but again, this goes back to establishing that perspective with your organization, making sure everybody's aligned on what tools as an organization you want the teams using and not using. So this is, again, step 1 of kind of the AI landscape is these LLMs. However, this is not the entire landscape. And so while it's important that we cover these, and I will say as we get into the use cases today, I believe almost all the use cases I'm going to share can be done with any of just these tools. So we'll dive more into that, but there's way more to the AI landscape than just those tools. So this is a little graphic I found, and these are all different generative AI applications that are out there today. Like I mentioned, there's new tools coming out every week, every day. I'm sure there's new tools. And with that being said, there's also new updates coming out within the already popular tools. For example, ChatGPT, I actually had to go back and change information on some of these slides since I did this presentation back in New Orleans, because ChatGPT has released some updates that I'll get to here in a little bit. If you use ChatGPT a lot, I'm sure you realize that ChatGPT 5 just came out late last week, and so that changed some stuff in my slides that I'm going to have to break down. So we'll talk about that here later. But there is a ton of tools out there, and it can be super overwhelming. And I think the point I want to drive home here is that you do not have to master all of these tools to be a good AI practitioner. I think you can become really effective, and you can become very efficient and optimize a lot of your workflows just by using one of those LLMs I shared on the previous slide, and understanding how to make prompts that really get you what you're looking for. And that's, again, something we're going to jump into. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that you do not need to master all these tools. Are there some on here that are amazing? Of course. I love Jasper. I love, there's a few other on here. I don't use a lot of the coding tools, but you can see all the different use cases as well, whether you're in more of a marketing space or a sales space or just an operations space. There's all kinds of stuff. And again, I would encourage you to do your research, go out there and explore, but don't feel like you have to master all of these. And that's, again, the goal today. I'm going to have you, see some of these use cases that I've found useful, and we're going to dive into those, and you'll be able to walk away with some actual things you guys can start doing. So with that being said, I'm going to go to the next slide. So we're about to jump into some use cases, but I do see there's some other Q&As, and I hope they're not just about my slide mix up here, but I want to read these real quick. What are some examples of reasons to not use AI as an organization? Please explain why it may not be good to upload financial data. Okay, that's a great point, and we will jump into that. And then I've got a longer one here. You can wait until the end for this question. Okay, then you said it, so I'm going to wait, but I will come back to these and we'll get these answered. But I want to jump into some use cases, so we will revisit those here at the end. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to talk through 3 categories here: how to streamline, how to simplify, and how to save time. And we're going to have 3 use cases for each of these. So some of these may be so simple that you are like, why am I even listening to this? But I swear these are all things I have either actually used or found to be super useful. And I think you guys will find so too. So the first use case I'm going to share here for streamlining workflows is one that I found super useful when I first started getting into how to utilize AI. And again, it's so simple, but whiteboard analysis. You're probably like, what the heck? Why would he share this? But I swear I love this. So I love using whiteboards. I love getting in a meeting. I love getting in a boardroom and sharing thoughts with the team, whether it's from a sales space or a CSR space, whatever it may be. Just getting your ideas out there on a board. I love visualizing it. It's very helpful for me and how my brain works. I'm left-handed, so that when I write on the whiteboard, I just erase everything that I just wrote. But once I get over that, I love using them. The common problem I've ran into with this is that when you have a great meeting, you've got all these notes on the whiteboard, and then it's time to leave that meeting and take action on those things you just took notes on. Someone is stuck there jotting everything down, snapping a photo, and it wastes a little bit of time of you having to copy down your flow charts or your lists or whatever you just put on the whiteboard. And so I one day was like, I bet I could just throw this into an LLM or ChatGPT or Copilot, whatever it may be, snap a photo of the whiteboard, upload it to the LLM, and say, hey, I want you to analyze what's on this whiteboard. And then it would spit out a prompt that would give me that information. So this is a little example here. I drew a little flow chart, and then I uploaded it, as you can see, on the phone. And I said, hey, analyze what's on this whiteboard, and it gave it to me in a bullet pointed list. Now, if I wanted this in a flow chart form, I could just prompt the tool again and say, hey, I want this in a more visual flow chart form, and it'll give you that as well. So again, I know this is incredibly simple, and something I want you guys to keep in mind as I go through these different examples is maybe this doesn't completely relate to something that would help you. It might be a little, you might be like, oh, it's great, but that doesn't help me, or oh, that's too, whatever. I want you guys to keep in mind, like, think of not necessarily the specific use case, but the general process. So this process in particular, snapping a photo of something that would take a long time to rather document digitally, uploading it and having ChatGPT do it for you. I'm sure there's many use cases where we go through things like that. Whether it's snapping a photo of like an advertisement that you like and saying, hey, I love this. How could this be applied to something that I'm doing over here? Things like that. So as I go through these examples, just think through different use cases of how the logic behind it could relate to something in your guys's day-to-day or workflows. So whiteboard analysis, I love it. Overly simple. It's a good place to start. Let's jump to the next one. The next one's going to be a little more promo specific. So I think everybody here will find that useful. But let's talk about product descriptions. So I think if we've got any sales people on the call, I think this would be a good example for you guys. But when it comes to product descriptions, maybe you're communicating with your prospects and you're trying to share, I think this product would be really good. Here's why. And you're going to go on these supplier sites and you're going to be able to see all the great information about that particular item. However, communicating what you see here on the slide from a supplier site may not be the best way to communicate that to your said prospect. So someone you're trying to sell this to. And so a really great use case that you could jump into with these AI tools is have it give you, a better way to communicate the information. So for example, in this, what I did is I just copied the URL of this web page. I think this was, I believe this is from Sanmar's site. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I believe this is from Sanmar's site. Copied the URL, pasted it into a ChatGPT prompt, and I said, hey, you're a sales rep, promotional product distributor, write a short product description of this item. And then the other piece that I think is really interesting, something to keep in mind, is you can frame it towards the specific person you're selling to. So for example, in this use case, I said, write this in a way that would appeal to a tech company hosting a fall conference coming up. And so not only am I getting a better way to break down and communicate this information, but I'm getting a way to communicate it to a specific audience so that my message is a little more targeted, a little more customized, and I'm doing it much faster than if I was just writing this by hand. So again, it's a little more promo specific. It's a streamline process, a way to streamline your process. And I could probably, get 10 of these done in the time it would take me to do one by hand. So again, just a tiny little workflow that I think could be really effective for some of the people on this call. And I hope some of you guys could take this away and find this helpful. So let's jump into Streamline use case number 3. And it's meeting note takers. So this is probably one of my favorites. And I'd be willing to bet this might be one that more people on this call are currently using. If not, that's okay. But I love meeting note takers. So myself, the person doing this webinar on AI, I love taking notes by hand. I literally have my notebook sitting right next to me as I'm on this call. I love writing stuff down with a pen and paper. I love crossing things out. There's something about it that I love. However, what I don't like about it is that whenever I'm on a meeting, like a Zoom call such as this, or Teams, or whatever the meeting may be, as someone's talking, I have my pen here and my head is down and I'm writing notes, and you can see the top of my head and my missing hair. But what I don't like is that as I'm taking notes, the person talking that I'm taking notes about, they can tell I am not fully engaged in the meeting. And I know it, I don't like it. And it really bothers me because I want them to make sure that I'm absorbing what they're saying. And even though I am, as I'm taking notes, there still might be things I'm missing that I don't realize because my brain is focused on making sure I'm writing things down well. So whether you take notes in a notebook, whether you take notes digitally, meeting note takers, I have found to be very, very effective for my work. And I love them. And so how they work is it essentially is another person or robot, or it's an AI tool that joins your meeting, and it essentially takes notes throughout the meeting. And then afterwards you can prompt it and you can say, hey, summarize this meeting for me, or give me the action items from this meeting. So it's something I love. These are some of the big 5 that are out there. So Fireflies is that first one. Microsoft Copilot, again, that's what I use the most because since we are a Teams organization, Copilot is integrated into Microsoft Teams. So any Teams meeting I jump into, I just have to turn on the Copilot functionality. And then afterwards, when the meeting's over, I can go back and say, hey, summarize the meeting or give me the action items. And it will list out everything that occurred in that meeting. So I find that super helpful. Otter, Fathom, there's some other great ones out there. I would recommend just kind of playing around with the different options. Just explore and experiment. I think that's the best way to go about anything AI related, honestly. So I love these. I will say, when you get started using one of these, it may be you might have trust issues with it. Like, I wouldn't say, okay, I'm gonna decide to use Fireflies on this meeting as my AI note taker, and I'm not gonna take any notes outside of that. I would say you will be fine doing that because these tools are pretty good. However, if you feel strange about that and you're scared that it might miss something or it might not get, I would say, as you get into using these tools, use both your normal note-taking method as well as one of these tools, and then over time you'll get more used to it. And then what I love is that over time, as you continue to use these, you're taking less notes, you're more engaged in your meetings, and all of a sudden, instead of having, meeting number one, where you took notes and maybe you missed a few things, and because you missed those, you got to have another meeting to make sure you fully understand what happened in the first meeting. All of a sudden, you start having less meetings because the meetings you do have are way more impactful. You're absorbing more information. You're getting more efficient with how you're taking action on information. And overall, again, it's streamlining your workflows. So meeting note takers, I love them. Big fan. And we'll keep moving forward. I see some more questions popping up. Again, if you guys joined a little late here, if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I will try to get to them throughout the presentation, or I will wait till the end. It just kind of depends. Sandbar and Sanmar, the supplier Sanmar, yes. Appears to be recorded. I'm unable to get my audio output to work. Uh-oh. I'm sorry about that, but yes, that's a good call out, and it was well. This meeting will be recorded, or webinar will be recorded, and this will be posted in Syncor. It's the Syncor resources community section. This will be posted. So if at any time you guys do drop off, or if you have people that are not in attendance that you want to see this, you'll have it there as well. So let's keep going. Some more use cases here. Want to make sure we're good on time. We are good on time. Perfect. Okay. So let's jump into Simplify. We just talked about 3 resources to kind of streamline workflows. Now let's talk about 3 use cases to simplify processes, workflows, whatever that may be. So number 1 here is Excel data analysis. And this goes back, I think we had a question on this as well in terms of, uploading sensitive data to these tools. So I'll talk about this on this slide too. But Excel data analysis utilizing these LLMs or these AI tools, it's definitely another reason that it's important to establish that POV. It's very important because everyone in your organization needs to have a clear understanding of what they can and cannot do with these tools when it comes to uploading sensitive information and what tools they can use. So in this example, I actually ironically had ChatGPT create me a sample data set. So you'll see that spreadsheet there. It's from Chase's promotional product company. It's just a spreadsheet of order numbers, customers, a bunch of data, and then I was able to upload it and analyze it within ChatGPT. But again, it's important to understand what data can you upload. And I think a good way to think about it, and this was actually brought up in New Orleans, someone made this comment in my presentation, was if you're not comfortable with a competitor seeing this information, don't upload it to an AI tool. And I think that's a good way to be right now, especially depending on the tool you're using. It's a good way to kind of frame it in, if I had this piece of information, I didn't want my competitors to know it, should I upload it? Should I not? I think that's a good way to go about it. So of course, there's going to be some obviously innocent pieces of data that you're going to need to analyze that would be super helpful to use these tools with. But then you're going to also have data that you probably don't want being uploaded. And so that's just a good frame I would keep in the back of your mind is, do I want my competitors seeing this information? No, probably don't upload it to these tools. The legality and the policy around this stuff is very much so the Wild West at the moment. There's a lot of things happening when it comes to that area of this space. So it's ever changing, it's ever evolving, and we want to just err on the side of caution with that. So, but with that being said, say you do have some data that you would like to upload to an LLM. I have found it to be very helpful. I'm sure many people on this call are very skilled with Excel. We've got our VLOOKUP champions, our text to column, our pivot tables, all that good stuff. All that stuff's great. However, not everyone is great with Excel. Not everyone is as quick or efficient or as knowledgeable with the different functionalities within Excel. But I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, are forced to use it from time to time. So these LLMs do give you a really easy way to analyze data from just prompting it. So uploading your document here and then saying, hey, I need to understand, and this is the example on this slide. I said, I need the sales data from the last month. Tell me which colored items were purchased the most. And then it gave me a clear breakdown here. Oh, white was purchased the most, and then green, and then black, and then blue, and then red. And then I said, can you create me a pie chart? That's another great part of this, is you can prompt it to give you tables, graphs, charts, some of which are interactive, as you can see in this GIF. You can get an interactive pie chart of your data. There's all kinds of great stuff you can do when it comes to analyzing data in these tools. I highly recommend, again, playing around with it, seeing what it can and cannot do for you. However, would you be comfortable with your competitors seeing this data? I think that's a good piece of information out of the back of your mind with this stuff. So data analysis, I love it. It's a great use case. And again, I'd go back to what I mentioned on the first use case slide of even if this particular example may not be practical for you, think through the logic behind it, think through the different pieces of this example that could be beneficial. So with that being said, I think let's go ahead and jump to the next one. I see some more questions here. So before I go to the next slide, let me review these questions. Where within at ease? Okay, these are good. These are good. I was told there'd be text information that we could put in ChatGPT. Okay, products information. Can you use the products information in at ease in Excel forms and to analyze all this information? Oh, okay, that's a good question. Are all of these free? Do you have trial periods? What is with subscription? That's a great question. Stacy, I love that question, and I will get to that. And things related back to at ease and Syncor, I'm going to save those for the end as well, but I will get to those. So let's keep moving forward. I want to make sure we have time at the end for questions, and I don't want to take too much of your guys' time. So next use case, here we go. Sales calls to follow-up emails. This is for all my salespeople out there. This is a great use case that we've used internally, and I think it's something that can save a lot of time and simplify workflows. Again, the category we're talking about right now. So if you're not using some sort of tool that can analyze a call transcript, I would highly recommend you do that. And then what you can do with that tool is take that transcript of your phone call, upload it into whatever LLM you choose to use, and prompt it by saying, turn this call transcript into a follow-up email. For example, if you use ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, you can do that with any of these tools. And then it will spit out a email draft based on the information, the specific information from that phone call of an email you can then send to that prospect. I love this. It's also important to note that you'll want to make sure that on your phone calls that you're using this with, that it's prompted where the phone call is being recorded. So most phone calling tools or dial tools, it'll be a pre-recorded message saying, you know, for quality assurance purposes, this call is being recorded. As long as that's happening, there's no issues around this in terms of utilizing the transcript with an AI tool to then create follow-up emails. But again, it's just a way to simplify processes. The normal process for, you know, a sales rep or really anybody in the organization doing something like this is you have your phone call, you take your notes, you then go write your email to follow up with that prospect. By having the transcript and then being able to just upload it and get an email in less than a minute, it's going to save you tons and tons of time. So I love this use case. And I will say too, and something I keep saying, and I'm sorry, but something I will get to here in a second is some prompting tips within these LLMs. So it's a little more specific to the usage of an LLM. So we'll get into that as well. And there's some use cases specific to writing emails with them. So I think you guys will find that helpful. But sales call transcripts to follow-up emails, use case that I love, and I think it would be beneficial to a lot of you guys as well, just saving time and simplifying your work. So let's go ahead and jump to the next one here. Getting more promo specific, comparing decoration specs. So you are, you know, looking at a bunch of different products you're going to potentially communicate with your prospect. You're trying to see which one would be best for them, and maybe you want to show them, hey, these are the 3 different products that I think would be really beneficial for you. Here's why. And sure, you could just send them URLs to each of these pages, or maybe that's not even relevant. Maybe you're just going to communicate to them, you know, by retyping the information in an email and sending it to them, or in a proposal, whatever the case may be. But what you can do with an AI tool such as ChatGPT or Copilot is I can say, hey, I want you to create me a table comparing these different decoration sheets and put it all in a table view. And so what I did here is I took the URLs of each of these pages, pasted them into my prompt, as you can see in the laptop view there. And then I prompted it with, create me a table. And then it spit out this table comparing and contrasting the differences of each of these products. Now, why I think this is super beneficial is creating a table like this, no matter how good you are with any sort of table creation software, whether it's Excel or something else, it's going to take you some time to create your columns, your rows, and then pulling the information. It's going to take time. With ChatGPT or any other LLM or AI tool, you can take these, put them into this table view, and you're going to be able to do this rapidly for your different prospects. And it's a really nice way for them to be able to compare and contrast the different options that they're looking at. So this is another one that I love. It's a very easy way for you guys to, again, save some time and just become more efficient with these tools. So let's jump now to saving time. So we've got 3 more use cases that are related to saving time utilizing AI. And I think these 3 are probably my favorite. I saved the best 3 for last. So let's jump into these. So first one being summarizing documents. So this is a huge time saver. Again, I would go back to that use case of if you don't want your competitor having this information, don't upload it to the LLM. However, so what I did here is I actually pulled the story, the Odyssey, the famous Greek story. It's a free PDF online, fun fact. That's why I used it for this. So that particular story is probably not super relevant to you guys, but the use case of being able to upload a large document and then analyze what's in that document is super useful. So what you can do is take your document that you have, maybe it's a PDF or something that someone sent you and you're supposed to analyze it, or you're trying to get some sort of information from it, but man, it's going to take a long time to read through all these pages and understand what's going on. You can upload that to your LLM of choice and then ask it content specific questions about what's in that document. So whether it's, in this case, Odysseus from the Odyssey, what's Odysseus's wife's name, or how long was his journey, or why did he leave, or whatever the case may be. But maybe it's something like, you're analyzing a document for editing purposes. So you're like, hey, that paragraph on page 4, at the top of page 4, reword that for me. Or hey, the bullet pointed list at the bottom of page 6, I really need that to be more concise. Things like that. It's very easy for you to upload it here and then let ChatGPT or any AI tool do the hard work, the heavy lifting, while you are just prompting the tool to do so. So something I love, I think a big piece too is, we all wish a 30-page document could be a list of 7 bullet points. These AI tools give us that power, right? So we can start analyzing these documents and scaling them down, making them more concise and getting to the root of what we need to know, as opposed to having to read the entire document and spending way too much time on it. It's again, huge time saver. So summarizing documents, I love this use case. You can upload all kinds of file types to these tools. Again, like I mentioned earlier, ChatGPT 5 was just released, or GPT-5 was just released. So the capabilities with that are even more crazy. So we'll jump into that a little later as well. So summarizing documents, let's go ahead and jump to our next one here. Email idea generation. This is a big one. I'm sure if you're on this call and you're using an AI tool, I'm sure you've used it to write an email from time to time. We're all writing emails. We're all writing way too many emails. And these AI tools can be super helpful with saving you some time in that process. Now, I want you to take note that the header of this slide is not email writing or email generation. It's email idea generation. And the reason I put that there is because I want to try and steer you away from, prompting an AI tool for an email, copying it, pasting it into Outlook or Gmail, and sending it. Because, AI tools can have hallucinations. They can make mistakes, and sometimes they just don't sound great. So we want to use it as an email idea generation tool, not necessarily as an email writer, copy, paste, and send. So some benefits of this, major benefits, is you're skipping that writer's block. You're getting ideas instantly. I can't tell you how much I've sat behind the computer and tried to think of the best way to word something. I don't do that anymore. I can utilize these tools, even if I'm just saying, hey, I have to write an email and it's going to, someone that I have had a relationship with for 20 years, make it sound friendly. Just getting those sorts of things in there is super nice. And that kind of leads into that second bullet of personalizing it for the tone, the client type, the product. You can get very specific with how you want it to sound, and it can save you a lot of time from having to sit there and think about how you want it to sound. Instead, you can just prompt a tool and say, hey, I want it to sound like this, and they can give you those ideas. So obviously, those are some huge benefits. And of course, saving time, it's going to save you a lot of time, which is amazing. However, these are the key things that I want to make sure you guys take note that I'm mentioning to watch for is always check grammar. There can be mistakes made, so always check grammar on any of the emails you're generating or any copy for that matter, whether it's maybe you're doing this for social media posts or any sort of documentation you're taking. Just check the grammar, because we all like proper grammar, right? So also minding the M dash. This is kind of a fun little caveat with ChatGPT specifically, and I don't know if GPT-5 has fixed this. I'm curious to take a look. I haven't had time to play around with it quite yet, but for some reason, ChatGPT loves to use the M dash. So the M dash is just that little dash, or it's like a hyphen. And I'm sure if you use the tool a lot, you've probably noticed this. If not, trust me, it's real. You can even see it in this example. There's some more M dashes than I would probably use if I was just writing this. It likes to use it. It's its favorite grammatical mark. I don't know why. And the reason I bring this up is because someone that uses these tools a lot, or someone that uses ChatGPT a lot, such as myself, if I see these M dashes in writing, I immediately disregard it as being ChatGPT generated or AI generated content, and I disregard it as being what's the word, relevant or accurate. And so I just want you guys to keep that in mind. That mind the M dashes. You can of course prompt it out. You don't have to just copy it and then delete them out. You can say, hey, write me this email, don't use an M dash, and it'll avoid it. But just something to keep in mind, because what the part that kind of sucks with this is that I loved using that before ChatGPT was out. It's a great grammatical mark. It splits up words nice. It's especially from a marketing perspective. It's nice to kind of break up copy and headlines or descriptions. But now, again, if I see it somewhere, I immediately establish or relate that to AI generated content. So just something to keep in mind. And I think it's a good point to make. Also, remove any placeholders. So you can see in this example, it's saying, hey, CSR name, and then at the end it says all the best, my name. So whether you're using a placeholder for first name, company name, whatever it may be, make sure you remove those. Nobody likes receiving an email that says hi first name. That is the worst. So make sure if you are utilizing this that you're removing those in this use case. The other piece I want to mention here is, and when I bring up mind the M dash, and it's talk, I mentioned how when I see it, I immediately think that it's AI generated and therefore it's not accurate. And it makes it sound like using these tools is not a good thing. And I think there's a potential that people have this mindset of using these tools is less genuine, or doesn't mean as much, or you lose that personal, that human element. And I think that's true, and it's possible for that to be the case. However, I think becoming someone that is a good prompt engineer and a good user of these tools understands that I'm going to use these tools so that I can be more genuine and communicate more of the human aspect by using them to save me time and make me more efficient. So it's not about outsourcing work to these tools. It's about utilizing them so that you can become more efficient and you can get more done in your day-to-day. So I just want to, again, keep that in the back of your mind as I'm going through these slides here, because I don't want it to come off as, saying that the M dash is bad and that using these tools is bad. By no means is that what I'm saying. I use them all the time, and they make me more efficient. But again, just want to communicate that out there. So I think I have one more use case, and then I've got some more little housekeeping items to talk about after that. So let's go ahead and jump to the next one here. How are we on time? We're good. So day-to-day optimizations. This is my final use case. I saved this one for the end on purpose, because if nothing else, if you don't use these tools for anything else, I just want it to be clear that if you have the app on your phone, which I recommend downloading these apps on your phone, they all have an app, or using the web browser is fine. But if you have it on your phone, these tools are like having a quantum mechanic genius, a fitness trainer, a dietitian, a teacher of mathematics, and you have so much information at your fingertips, the same way you do with Google, but you can now prompt this with anything you would like to know or anything you need to better your life. and it will give you a great guide for it. I'm not saying that it is 100% accurate, 100% great, and you should trust everything it says, but it can really put you on the right path for anything you're trying to accomplish. So for example, I believe this is a use case where I was saying, hey, I've got 3 kids. I work from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. I then have to pick up my kids from school. I then have to make dinner. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I'm super busy, and I'm trying to lose 10 pounds or whatever the prompt was. I don't remember specifically what I said, but you can basically rant to these tools, which I have done. And I'll be honest, it's an embarrassing thing to share, but I will share it. There's times on my drive to work in the mornings where I just put ChatGPT's voice option on, and I'll just talk to it. I'll just have a conversation back and forth. Before you judge it, try it. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of freaky, honestly. If you've seen that movie Her, it kind of reminds me of that. But it's super helpful to just bounce ideas. Maybe I'm thinking about a certain thing that I'm going to try at work, or I'm thinking about something in my fitness or my relationships or something, and I just want to bounce ideas off something or someone. It's a very great tool for that. So I recommend just playing around. If there's nothing else you take, of course, I want you to make sure to establish that POV with your organization. That's number one. But number two is playing around with these things, testing things out. That's the best way to learn. That's how I've learned so far, is just taking some time to try and understand how they work, how I can become better at using them. And the best way to do that is just playing around. So with that being said, I've got some prompting tips I want to share. I think these are super useful. So let's jump into those. And this is a big slide where I actually had to switch out some images on this slide just before I started this, because ChatGPT again released that GPT-5, and that's another point. I don't know if I said it in this presentation already, but I'm going to say it now. These things are moving fast. The AI industry, the AI hype is moving fast. I mean, I was in New Orleans. I don't know if that was even a month ago. I don't remember the exact dates. I guess it was about a month ago. And already I had to change things out on this slide because the information is already new. So keep that in mind too. Things are rapidly changing. It's a lot to keep up with. And that's why I think it's important to understand to keep a focus on the tools that are most practical to you, and not trying to understand all the tools out there, because there's so much, it's overwhelming, and it's hard to keep track of it all. But bonus prompting tips, I think these can be beneficial for anybody. So number one is giving the LLM a role. So I did that in a few examples in the use cases I shared. And what I mean by that is, when you prompt your LLM to do whatever you're prompting it to do, giving it a role can give it more context and therefore make the responses higher quality. So for example, if I'm saying, hey, I want you to write an email to my prospect about these shirts I want them to buy, that's one way to do it. But if you give it a role by saying, hey, you're a promotional products sales expert with 20 years in the industry, and then prompt them with the information, it's going to give you better responses, because it's almost taking on a persona of someone that you want to sound like or communicate like. So you could do it with anything. Probably a better example would be like if you want to communicate how quantum mechanics works, you could say, hey, you're a quantum mechanics professor with 30 years of experience, and then continue with your prompt. It can be super beneficial to do that. So I highly recommend playing around with that. Also, asking for follow-up or clarifying questions. This is a great use case that I use a lot, because this is helpful for getting that first response to be the best. And what I mean by this is saying, hey, maybe your prompt is, I'm a promotional product sales rep with 5 years in the industry. Write me an email to my prospect so that I can, sell them this product. And then just at the end of it, just ask any follow-up clarifying questions. And then what it'll do is, in the prompt, it'll spit out maybe 5 to 10 bullet points of different questions that may be relevant, like where is your client located? Where are you located? What's the timeline? Things like that. It'll ask those questions, and then you can just follow up, and it's going to have much better context into what you're trying to do with the tool, and again, make you more efficient utilizing the tool, as opposed to if you're just prompting a super brief prompt. So prompt engineering is huge. I think that's a big thing to play around with and mess with. Some other bullets here. These are just some shortcuts that are native to some of these platforms. And you can also create your own shortcuts with limited memory. So for example, if like ELI5 is explained like I'm 5. So if you type ELI5 quantum mechanics in a chat GPT, it's going to explain it to you as if you're 5 years old. So it's going to be very, very simple language and examples of explaining it. Same thing with TLDR, too long didn't read. If you put TLDR and then paste like an article or a super long block of text, it'll sum it up for you in a few bullet points. Jargonize, this is one if you want to sound smart. So if you say jargonize quantum mechanics, it'll make it sound really smart and make it sound like you know what you're talking about. And then quite the opposite, humanize is it'll make you sound less like a robot. So if you have something that is maybe hard for someone to read that doesn't have as deep of understanding in the specific topic that you do, you can say humanize and it'll make it a little bit easier to understand. So these are universal, so you can utilize these, but you can also make your own. So maybe you have a process that is repeated every once in a while, and you found a use case for an LLM to make it a little easier. You can say, hey, whenever I type this sequence of characters, this is what I want you to do, and it can take that action for you. Now, I will say, I believe there's limited memory on that. So if you are using it for months and months and months, the memory on some of these tools may expire. That may change with ChatGPT 5. I'm not sure. And then, of course, with other tools, whether it's Gemini or Perplexity or Grok or whatever it may be, very similar in that the memory can expire. So just keep that in mind. But some little prompting tools. And then, again, the ChatGPT 5 breakdown before ChatGPT 4 had different prompting models. So there was reasoning versus chat models. And I talked about this in New Orleans. Now they've restructured everything, and it's just GPT-5 or GPT-5 thinking in terms of what's available on the plan that I have. And then, of course, you've got your agent mode, deeper. There's all kinds of stuff I could get into. We just don't have the time. We're already at 12:47. I want to answer questions. The last thing I'll mention before I get to questions is the plans. And actually, it was a question, so I'll actually just jump into it there of whether it's worth paying for these tools or not. So I'll jump into that in the questions. But prompting tips, and then what you can do today. So what I want to leave you with before I start answering some of these questions we got is establishing a perspective or a POV, a point of view within your organization on AI tool usage, I think is the most important thing you can do today. If you don't have that established, it's important for everyone to be aligned, everyone to understand what they can and cannot do, because that's what is going to enable your teams to be efficient. It's that alignment and making sure everyone's on the same page. And then beyond that is playing around, just testing things out. I think that's what you can do as well. That's how I stumbled across a lot of these use cases that may or may not be relevant to you specifically, but they just came from me kind of playing around and messing with stuff and thinking what if and getting creative with thinking through my day-to-day and what takes a long time for me to do, what I really don't like doing, and how I can outsource that to these tools to make me more efficient. So I think those are the two things: establish that point of view and just start playing around. I think those are the two most important things. Now, with that being said, let's jump into some questions here. I'm going to open up the Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We've got 11 minutes here, so I'm going to try and run through these as fast as I can. And let's see what we got here. So I'm going to go all the way back to the people that were asked questions at the beginning. I apologize it's been so long, but if you're still here, I appreciate being patient so I can answer them. So first question, how does OpenAI relate to the commercially available AI tools such as Perplexity, Copilot, Claude, Gemini, etc.? So OpenAI owns ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is their LLM tool. So OpenAI being the company, I think a good way to think about it is like OpenAI is to Microsoft as Copilot is the ChatGPT. So that's kind of the structure there. That's a good question. That's a good question. Next question. So what are some examples of reasons to not use AI as an organization? i.e., please explain why it may not be good to upload a financial document to ChatGPT for analysis. Great question. I know I touched on that a couple times throughout the slides, but just I think a good way to think about this, because the policies and rules around this are always changing. So I can't provide like a concrete, do's and don'ts on this, but I think a good way to think about it is if you would not want your competitors seeing this information, do not upload it to one of these tools. I think that's just a great way to stay, in the safe zone with these tools for now. Of course, there's going to be updates coming out, new things coming out, but that's a great way to stay above board in terms of right now. So hopefully that is helpful there. Okay, another one here. What types of details should be in our AI policy? For those Facilis members who already have AI POV policy established, are they willing to share? For those of us building our AI policy currently, would anyone be interested in a subgroup to ensure we're considering all important details with our policies, such as security, also ensuring employees embrace? Okay, this is great. I love this. And this is something, this is questions I got in New Orleans as well. And I did share a template in terms of just an AI POV, but I love the idea of Facilis members getting together and sharing ideas too. I think that's something that we can maybe coordinate and do stuff with. So I love that. But I think things to keep in mind is obviously, you know, what information can and cannot be uploaded, what tools we use. There's a few more I want to share, but I can't remember on the top of my head that I included in that template. But maybe that's something I can share along with these slides is a template for that. I will connect with my team internally and we can talk through that. But good question there. Okay, Seth, or if it thinks, oh, that was the Sandmark question. Okay, next one, Melinda. It appears this is being recorded. Yes, this is being recorded. And again, if you did not hear it prior, it will be in the Syncor Resources community section. So you'll be able to access this there. Okay, where within At Ease do you suggest we keep all the AI notes summarized from meetings? That's a great question. And I knew I would get Syncor specific questions in here. And I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't want my success team members getting mad at me. But I think a great way to go about it is, I think it depends on your processes within Syncor. So I'm not going to be able to answer those super specifically, but I can take note of these and we can get back in touch after I connect with some SAAs on where that stuff would best live. So I'm gonna pause on that one and we can get back to you guys with some of these more specific Syncor questions. But let me keep running through these. I was told there is a way to protect sensitive information that we put into ChatGPT to be shared by all settings. I think that is accurate, and I don't know if it changed with GPT-5 or not. But I believe there are some settings, some like safe privacy modes that you can utilize in these tools. Again, I just don't have enough time to jump into that today on this call, but I believe that's accurate. I can share some information out about that as well, because I'm actually curious now with ChatGPT 5 if things have changed or not. So good question. And I will try and get back with an answer on that one as well. Can you use the products information in At Ease in Excel form in analysis, as this information is not in Excel form, but needs to be? I don't know if I fully understand that question. Can you use the product information in At Ease in Excel form and analyze it? I think what it's saying is, can you upload information to an LLM that's not in Excel form? These tools do accept a lot of different formats of documents. So whether it's a Excel, CSV, PDF, Word doc, you can upload a variety of different document types. I believe that's what that question's asking. That's my answer. If it's not, sorry, send another question. Okay, here we go. Stacy, are all of these free or do they have trial periods? What is worth subscription? Great question. And that's something I want to get into. We still got 6 minutes here. So I personally do pay for the OpenAI ChatGPT Plus subscription. So ChatGPT specifically has their free version. They've got their Plus, which is $20 a month. They have their Pro, which last time I checked was $200 a month. I'm not sure if that's changed or not. I personally, and of course, all the other tools are going to have their subscription models as well. I'm just using ChatGPT as example because that's what I have the most exposure with. And then Copilot, obviously, I use internally here at Facilisgroup. I love the Plus subscription. And the main reason I enjoy it is because you get first access to a lot of the new features. Obviously, the Pro subscription is going to get first dibs on the new features coming out. I just don't want to pay $200 a month, but $20 a month I can swing and I'll get access to some cool features. Also, things like image generation and some other features on the free version you'll be limited to. So maybe you only get to do, you know, X number of actions per day. The Plus is going to expand your capabilities there. So again, if you're someone that wants to kind of stay on top of these things, use these tools a lot, I do think it's worth paying for a subscription, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with the free tools, and you're not going to get less quality prompts out of the free tools either. So the quality of what you'll get is the same. It's just if you want to use, you know, deep research tools or some elevated features within the actual tool itself, that's when I'd say it might be worth paying for those subscriptions. So We can talk more about that offline if you have questions, but that's my opinion there. Can you speak to the environmental impact of AI queries versus Google searches? While AI has clear business benefits, which is what everyone talks about, I think it is important for people to be informed on the negative environmental impact as well. Please speak to this or look it up if you aren't aware for future reference. Love this. Great point to call out. There's been a lot of stuff talked about specifically, I've seen, how much water um, one day of ChatGPT prompts is utilizing when it comes to data centers and cooling and things like that. I don't have in-depth information to share on those things, so I don't want to speak out of turn. However, it is a good point to bring up that is something people are talking about, is the sheer power required to power these things, and the more people using them, the more power it takes. And so there is an environmental impact. Again, I don't know the in-depth, so I don't want to say it's horrible for the environment or it's not a big deal because I don't know. But a great call out. And again, as you guys walk away from here and do some research, I'd recommend looking into that stuff as well. So great call out. Appreciate that question. How is it that our competitors can get our info? How would they find it? Good question. Want to clarify. I'm by no means saying they would get your information. I'm just saying it's a good mindset to have, that if you wouldn't be comfortable with that, it's probably a good idea to not upload it, just because, again, the data usage and privacy of these tools is very up in the air. It's a rapidly changing space. We don't really know what the policies are going to be tomorrow in terms of how things are used from these platforms. So I think it's a good question, but I'm not saying that you're giving information to your competitors by uploading it to an LLM. I'm just saying it's a good headspace to be in, just to remain safe in terms of what you are uploading to these tools, because it is a little bit of a question mark and an ever-changing topic in terms of how data may or may not be used within these tools. So good clarifying question. I hope that answers, maybe a few people have that same question. By no means am I saying that you're actually giving it to competitors. It's just the unknown of what could be done with the information you upload. Okay. This one's for after the call, so I'm going to skip that one just because it's long, but I can come back to that. Does Copilot have an upgraded paid function beyond the basic MS license, and is it worth it? That's a good question. I am not 100% sure, because my exposure to Copilot, again, has been through Facilisgroup, and our IT department has been the primary admin of that stuff. So that's a good question. I want to say yes, but I don't want to speak out of turn. I can find some more information for you afterwards, though, and share some stuff. I want to make sure I hit time here. I got 2 minutes. How do we use AI without fear of exposing our data to competition? I think the same point I've been making. If you're afraid that the data would be in the hands of competitor, it would not be a good situation. I would avoid using that data with tools. Another use case I've talked about too is you can use fake data. So the pieces of the information that you don't want exposed, potentially you could use placeholders, and that way you're still getting analysis of a data set, but the context you understand because you built these placeholders in your data set. But if it was exposed in any way, again, I'm not saying it would be, it's just to be safe, you would have context into it, but they would not. So that's another good idea, is using placeholders within your data set. Just use attachments and opportunities. I think that might be an answer. Oh, for AI notes. Okay, I love that. If that's a good use case for you, Seth, I would say that's a good way to go about it. Using attachments within opportunities for AI notes. I'm hearing that that's a good option. And then our last question here says product reporting. I'm not sure what that means. So if that's a question. Oh, I think that's response to your question above. We're right on the time, so I will get back with that question later. But okay, we're at 1. I don't want to take any more guys' time. I appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully you got something away from this. Again, this will be posted in the Syncor Resources community. So if you do have more questions or things you would like to learn more on, we can continue that conversation offline. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you later.